So this is the second part of a series of messages about healing. And in the last part, we introduced the concept of God consciousness, being conscious of Jesus Christ as being the healer. Now, there are many different forms of faith which a person can have. Faith in God is the most important thing which we want to look at. We don't want to have all these other notions of faith in healing or faith in prayer even, although these things may be good as a foundation. But ultimately, every individual needs to connect with God. They must have faith in God, you must have faith in Jesus Christ as being the healer. And so this is the second part of the message. I want to share some testimony about how Jesus has actually healed someone, or the first time I noticed a notable healing miracle taking place. I was called to pray for someone who was sick, and I went into the hospital, and this person was very, very sick. And as usual, I had prepared a message. On my way, I prepared a message about blind Bartimaeus and how he crawled out to Jesus, and Jesus healed him because of his faith. And I prepared a message along those lines. And so I get to the hospital and I see someone who was very, very sick, and they had lost a lot of weight and they were suffering from HIV/AIDS. And I wasn't aware of this when I was called to the meeting. And so it was such a shattering reality that I completely lost whatever faith I had in my prayers and my system of prayer. And I realized in that moment that if God doesn't heal this person, they're going to die. And so a strange thing happened is that I became aware of God in that moment. I became aware that God is able to heal the sick. And all this, which had been theory for many, many years, suddenly was a reality in that moment. And I gave a very simple message about how this person needs to have faith in Jesus Christ, and that Jesus is not limited by distance, is not limited by race, is not limited by time and space. But Jesus is able to heal every person, or no matter what their background, is able to heal everyone from any sicknesses. And so I gave this message and did a simple prayer, and I didn't wait to see if there were any results. I just felt in that moment that God had heard the prayer and God had answered the prayer. And when I prayed and I left, I didn't give it a second thought. So some months later, several months later, I was invited to another house just to see some people and minister the word of God to them. And I got to this house and I greeted the people I recognized, and another lady spoke to me and said, why didn't you greet me? Because I didn't recognize her. And I tried to think for the life of me who she was, but I completely didn't know her. And then she says, and she talks to me and she says, I'm the lady who you prayed for in the hospital and was sick. And, she had gained so much weight, her appearance, her skin had changed. She was completely and totally healed. I was astounded. And it was the first time I took note of the testimony that actually Jesus has actually healed someone. And she gave me a report that she had been for testing and she was HIV negative. And so it was the first time it actually struck me that, wait a minute, this is actually now working. And so as a result of that, I began to look at it, because for many years I'd been praying for the sick. I myself had been falling sick, and the prayers had seemed ineffectual for many years. And I began to look at it and say and think to myself, why was this prayer particularly effective and the other prayers were not effective? And I realized in that moment that the difference between all the other times when I tried to pray for the sick is that I had faith in prayer. I had faith in a method. I had not had faith in Jesus Christ. The Word of God says, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So the way and the method which I was supposed to be applying was Jesus Christ himself. I was not meant to have faith in the effectiveness of my prayer, but to have faith in the effectiveness of the Creator. The Word of God says that Jesus went about doing good, healing the sick and all that were oppressed of the devil. And if Jesus is alive today as we preach and believe, that he is alive, there is no reason to think that he has stopped going about doing good, healing the sick, all that are sick, and those who are oppressed of the devil. The only prerequisite is that we must have faith in him. We must believe in him. We must believe in his divine ability to heal the sick. And so for years I had so much faith in my theology, in my doctrine, in the power of my prayer, how long my prayer was, the wording, the exact wording of my prayer, and I suppose that these things would bring healing to people. And as a result of this, I had failed to connect people to the one who brings the healing, who is Jesus Christ himself. And so when I discovered and stumbled upon this principle by his grace, it changed the face of ministering to the sick completely.